Thank you everyone today for joining us. Welcome to this webinar, Top 7 Key Success Factors to Develop Sales Internationally. In this webinar, CEO Mentoring in Conference will explain the key factors to develop international sales successfully, maximizing your company's profits. You'll learn the rules to success as well as other typical mistakes to avoid, which will help you to build a stronger and growing business. This presentation will be led by Thierry and Paul, founders of CEO Mentoring, a company specialized in offering mentorship to organizations in stressful phases due to internal or external changes. They will share the best practices they have built over 50 years of international experience. So first of all, let me briefly welcome our new Connect Americas members and joining us for the first time in this webinar series. Connect Americas is the most important business platform in Latin America and the Caribbean. It is online, free, and aims at connecting SMEs in the region to new business opportunities and offer online training and information about business support services so that these companies can do more and better business. Connect Americas was developed by the Inter-American Development Bank with this support from Google, DHL, Alibaba, and Zealand. So we invite you to participate actively on Connect Americas. This tool is yours. So here you will be able to check purchasing bids from big companies, governments in the region, and the IDB, of course. Connect with business people in the region and the rest of the world. Learn about our next webinars and events. So please follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and all our social networks. Right now I would like to present our panelists today. So first of all, Paul Griffiths. Paul is an executive co-founder of CEO Mentoring. He's based in Chile, from where he operates across the Americas. His areas of expertise are strategy, knowledge management, technology management, and how to align these factors as a platform for innovation and international growth. For over 20 years, he was on the global leadership teams of world-class consulting firms, serving the boards of big companies. And he also, in the early 90s, he was a pioneer in the ERP and SAP space, and since the 2000s has been deeply involved with CRM, e-commerce, fintech as platforms for change. At present, his main interest is technologies in cognitive computing. And also, let me introduce to you Thierry Bales. Thierry, executive co-founder of CEO Mentoring, is based in the UK. He brings over 25 years international experience with understanding of opportunities and challenges in the food and beverage, fashion, textiles, and retail industry, from strategy to executing with a focus on sales and marketing. Thierry knows how to bring more value to the clients by thinking outside the box, and is very familiar with the management of multicultural and cross-functional teams across several industries and regions around the world. He's passionate about brand management, management of retail and wholesale channels. Thierry is also very much involved in the academic world, acting as visiting lecturer in business schools from France and the UK. So thanks both Thierry and Paul for joining us today, for giving this webinar to our audience. Remember that you have a Q&A box here in the panel on your right. There you can send us questions for our panelists. I will be in charge of that. So we can make all these questions at the end of the presentation. So we invite you to participate fully in this webinar. Here you can see where is the Q&A panel. So welcome again, and please, I will give the word to Thierry. He will be presenting and starting his presentation right now.
Thank you very much, Jimena, for the presentation. So we'll be able to spend less time on ourselves, Thierry, myself, and Paul, my colleague. And thank you so much, all of you, to be here present. Obviously, it is your webinar. It's about your business today. So we really want to make sure that we can hear about, your question, your concern, your challenges, opportunities. Can you make sure maybe to quickly write on the chat box if you do hear us well, because if it's not the case, do let us know. So if you can just say yes or no, at least we'll make sure that everything is moving smoothly for us. So a quick yes in the chat box is appreciated. So let's start about those 7 key success factors for international sales. And we'll tell you a little bit more about us in addition to what Jimena has mentioned. What I want to also say quickly is I had an event today because I had to call a retailer, and it was pouring rain in London today. And what has happened is I called John to celebrate his wife's birthday. And then I told him, okay, how's going to be the traffic in your store? He's in central London. He's paying over, $400,000 a year in rent. And I said, how's going to be the traffic normally when it rains? Well, Thierry, it's not going to be great. So what are you going to do about it? After challenging him for 2 to 3 minutes, what did I get? Nothing. It's like John's going to be staying behind his counter and waiting for the customer to come in. I said, look, John, you've got a great customer service. You've got a big smile. You have, honestly, the best experience you can give inside your boutique. I mean, if you go in a store in central London, you can get whiskey, cognac, tea, coffee, espresso, whatever. And I said, you've got to attract people. It's raining outside. Come inside the boutique and get the sunshine inside. We're here to bring you the sunshine. I say, even if you need to bring out a tray and offer the coffee, do it. And, this is where somebody from the outside can really make sure that you look at an opportunity or a challenge in the business, and I would say in a very effective way. And we're going to do that precisely also about, international sales. And the second event I needed to describe to you also was I was speaking with a friend who's working with a Norwegian client. And, after a few months of connecting with the client, they haven't been telling him the truth. It's a man and woman business. They have a concession inside a department store in the Scandinavian countries. And they failed to really say the truth that, the husband and the wife had different opinions on running the business. Except that when you have sales going down and down months after months, and the wife wants to do a pretty presentation in the concession, and the husband feels it should be maybe less beautiful, but focus on basic styles that the Norwegian wants to buy, well, somebody has to make a decision. And what Paul and myself will tell you further down the road is it's great to go again for your dreams, which is maybe have a beautiful space, but if it doesn't work, you've got to have some measurements. You have to have a dashboard. You must have something to tell you something's not working. We've got to change. Paul, can I let you maybe introduce yourself quickly in addition to what Jimena might have said?
Yeah, thanks all of you for attending. I'm really pleased to be talking to you today. And, just to, one of the things that really makes me interested these days is how organizations manage their intangibles. We live in the knowledge economy. Any organization you find has a lot more value in intangible assets than the assets that are actually in their accounting. So, this is the challenge that you have as entrepreneurs. How do you get that intangible value? And it's difficult to work with intangible values in this time and age. Going back to, this storytelling that Thierry was mentioning, yesterday evening, about 6, 7 o'clock yesterday evening, I had a very interesting conversation with somebody just like you. It's an entrepreneur based in Mexico who's in the organic foods industry. And she was telling me that she's been in business for close to 10 years. It was a flourishing business. In the last year or year and a half, her sales have been dropping. They've been dropping. Essentially, I asked her to explain, or her view on what that is, and it was that she's getting competitors that she didn't have before. They're coming in with cheaper, lower priced products that, when being tasted in the mouth, were different but were well packaged, and so she finds her market is dropping. So what do you have to do? Strengthen the brand and look for, if your market is saturated, then go and look for other markets. And so we're talking about helping her move into the European markets, where her products will be of a high value added. But you see, it's the importance of having an outsider to give you a view of where you're standing. Jerry?
And when you look at the fashion arena, it's the same thing. You're going to realize that if you are, a German brand, the German buyer will be willing to buy more from you as a German brand if he sees that you've been exhibiting in France, in Italy, in the US, in Japan. So building international sales is really important, and it's really important now because your market may be saturated. You will build up brand awareness, and of course we want to make sure that we also bring you that today, because we all want also to share with you that we've created, and we've been working with an international sales booster system with our clients, just to make sure that we're going to be able to bring you all that knowledge and also help you in a very practical way. We have a surprise for you that will give you even extra help in delivering the plan. And quickly on CEO mentoring, and I think it's a presentation and an approach I would like you to use when you're going to be selling to international buyers or buyer in your home country. What attracted me to CEO mentoring is not what we do, offer mentoring in confidence, product and services. It's not necessarily how we do it with a clear process, with a necessity to screen our mentors and to screen our subject matter experts, is why we do it. And the why we do it is because we have a boutique approach. We care about our clients, and why we do it is because we care about your business, and it's about as much business growth as it is as personal growth. And I'm sure you know that in many small, medium-sized companies, if something goes on in the business, it can also jeopardize the family. So, and when you start growing also sales, you want to have the opportunity to have, I would say, a mentor who's going to have international experience, who's going to be able to back up with other subject matter experts coming from all around the world in different languages. And this is, I would say, our value proposition, which really makes it interesting for our clients. And I'm looking to share, I would say, how we're going to grow sales today for your business. The more we understand your business, the more we'll be able to help you today and also in the follow-up. So could you use the chat box and tell us in 2, 3, 4 words, what is your industry and specialty? If you could all put your industry and specialty, it will give us a better understanding of maybe case studies that we could build also around your industry. So we'll give you 5, 10, 15 seconds to do that. Thank you very much for putting the answer in the chat box.
Thierry, whilst our audience write up, why don't we give them an idea of what we're going to do in the next 40 minutes or so? What we're going to do is we're going to take you through the International Sales Booster Program. This has a number of components. We called it the 7 Ps, just for you to remember. And so what we're going to do is take you through each of these 7 stages and give you a few tips on where we think you have to focus. And at the end, we will show you part of our toolkit that you will use to assess yourself and understand where you need to focus your future efforts. And finally, probably we've got some goodies to give you. We've got a book that we've written on this, which you will be entitled to download free, and we will also offer you a meeting at no cost, a meeting with a mentor to discuss some of your issues and so on. So, Jerry.
Yeah. So we'll move on, because we want to get you involved and really understand that it's never so easy when you're confronted with sales opportunities and challenges. And what I would like to ask you is, what do you see on the left? Could you use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen and tell us, what do you see on the left of the screen, and what do you see on the right-hand side of the screen? Could you quickly, in a few seconds, share with us what you see on the left and on the right of your screen? So we'll give you a few seconds to do that. So people do see a red circle and a rectangle. So now, this is what so when you look at your sales growth opportunities in the business, you see that red circle and you'll see that orange rectangle. Can I ask you a favor? Could you start leaning on the right-hand side? Lean on the right-hand side of your screen. And what do I see? I see a cylinder. And what I want to make sure we understand is everything's a question of perspective. Because the answer you're giving today, the answer that you're going to be giving to your sales opportunity or challenge you're going to be facing every day in the business is going to be based on your experience. And therefore, the question is, two people with different experience will have a different answer. And the question is, therefore, who's joining you in that journey? Who's going to be able to tell you that actually you see it as an opportunity, I'm going to see it as danger. You're going to see it as danger, and I'm going to see it as an opportunity. I mean, if I refer, to people approaching me and going to trade shows, and they see it as an opportunity to grow the business, that is correct. But if it's badly prepared, it will produce no sales, or so small sales, you're not even going to break even. When you go to the U.S. in my sector, fashion, for example, and accessories and many other products, the American buyer expects one thing. He expects prices to be delivered, duty paid, including duty and freight. And failing to do that, you will pick up no or few orders. So all that money and time invested will not produce any effect. Another little quick game I would like to share with you is, very often we feel we know our business because we are the entrepreneur, we're the founder of the business, we've been building it up season after season, year after year. And, whether it's an apparel business, whether we're selling mobile phones, whether we are, selling organic foods, or whether it might be, pumps or restaurant, we nailed it. And the reality is, very often our business is actually the right-hand picture. And I would like you to tell me, what do you see on the right hand of your screen? What does that image represent? Would you be able to share with us what you see on the right-hand side of the screen? Could I leave you a few seconds to do that? It's not water filters. It's not an outsourcing service either. What is it you think you see on the right-hand side of? Some people may say it's the moon. Some people may say it's the shadows. It is not. Actually, you will find it in a farm, and it breathes. What do you think could be behind that picture? Are you able to spot it? Well, now let me share it with you. Do you see what it is now? Now that I indicated to you what it was, could you actually write in the chat box what you saw in the following picture? Could you tell me what your eyes do see now? Because what is interesting is once again, that is correct. It's a cow. And the reason why you are able to see a cow, or most people will now see a cow at 80%, is because their attention was drawn on the image of the cow. So it's the same thing. The opportunity for Paul, myself, or somebody acting as a sounding board in your business is to tell you which are the KPIs you need to look at to successfully grow sales. It's somebody who's going to help you identify the key markets and the key questions you may have to ask. For example, in fashion, when you go to a USA trade show, you want to nail specific question within 3 minutes. If you fail to do that, you do it the way British people do it when they go to the US. They talk about the weather for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, 20 minutes of talking about the weather will get the buyer to run away from your business. So these are real things when, you know, an outside viewpoint can really help you move forward the business. So one thing we would love to be able to receive from you is, well, what is that number one international priority that you have for the next 90 days? Paul, if you want to share with us a few things, feel free while the audience tells us about their next international priority.
Yeah, so, you know, we all need, we have many things on our desks, okay? We export to the US, that's a good entry. That's what's our,
Thank you very much.
An e-commerce solution, opening new clients. Well, great. So that's your priority. And Jerry, can we change?
Yes, and feel free to know that the link that we have at the bottom is a link where you will be able to get free advice to answer specifically those questions. So feel free to take advantage of it, because you'll have expert advice, expert mentoring on a question. Paul, I let you.
Now, achieving those priorities has challenges, has barriers that you need to overcome. So what do you think are your challenges, your barriers, those obstacles that you need to overcome to be able to meet your priority goals? Just give us 2 or 3 words on that. And this is more problem solving. Now we get down to understand what the obstacles are. So we need to focus on that. So you see, businesses normally this. We go from the thinking in large scale, as we did on what our priorities are, to small scale on, okay, how do we overcome the challenge? We go to a problem-solving state of mind, and that's what we do all the time, and what we need to do. And ideally, use external people who can help you make that shift.
Correct.
Jerry?
So once again, feel free, as you give us that right now, but across the webinar, to also go to the landing page, go to that link, and make sure that, you know, we can provide you specific on a one-to-one some answers. And thank you for the person who said also, you're just finding a new customer to sell RTs. But behind that statement, please remember that if you set up the right process to find one, it will open the doors to another 10, another 20, another 50. So, you know, the 7 P's to grow sales is going to be those 7 things that you want to take advantage of to make sure that you set up that foundation so securely, so well, that sales will naturally come and you will make it a painless exercise on the team and yourself to make it happen. So what are the P's you really need to go through to make it happen? One is picture. And the way I would like you to look at the P of picture is going to be, you know, you close your eyes and you tell me, Thierry, this is what I see for my business over the next 3 to 5 years. And if you nail that vision, if you nail those values for your business, it's going to be really powerful. And sometimes we forget about how powerful it can be, because vision and values for me goes beyond what you're going to put on a business plan and attach to it, and beyond what you're going to be maybe giving the investor. It's also an opportunity, and Paul will talk about people down the road, but it's an opportunity to make sure that the people who are going to join you will join you all the way. And they will do it because they understand and they follow your dream. And remember that this is going to give you, I would say, the clear direction to grow the business. Paul?
Now, this is very important. Let me tell you, and this is even in big businesses. Many years ago, I was a consultant for one of the great, big financial services organizations in the world. And they had, I helped them set up their strategic plan, 3-year plan. And then, of course, I went away and I was called back 2 or 3 years later to review the plan. And, people were a bit uncomfortable because they hadn't made much progress. And so I looked at the plan and I said, okay, I went back to their head office, to their headquarters, and what is their vision and mission and what do they... And they had changed radically. When we did the plan in 2001, which was before 9/11, everything was about expansion, about having 3 times more clients, and about doubling what in financial services is called density of products per client. Huge, massive growth. But 3 years later, at the center, the head office, the organization had taken another strategy. Due to all the events of 9/11, they were in a strategy of cost cutting and making sure that they only focused on products that were really profitable. The Latin American subsidiaries, 6 countries, hadn't internalized that. They were still working on their old vision. So you see, even big companies need to revisit this all the time. And it's so easy to just forget and to keep on working in an automate way and not thinking on this. Jerry?
Correct. Then the next P.
Okay, the next P is plan. And we all know we need to plan. We need to plan in our business life, and we need to plan in our day-to-day life. Clearly, setting up plans for what we want to do is a very important part. It's very important to formulate a good plan. It doesn't mean you're going to meet your objectives, because at the end of the day, it's implementation that matters. Always, implementation is it's far more important. You don't need the perfect plan. It's better to get going, because once you start implementing, you can come back and correct a plan that's not perfect. But it's no good having a perfect plan that you do not implement. So, you need to plan, and you need to implement, and you need to review the plan and come back. When you're in international business, trying to expand your business internationally, well, there are things you need to do in your planning. First of all, understand what are the price points for your products in the new market. That's essential. You need to do some upfront research on what prices that market would take. And of course, there's also the cost side. What's the cost of producing, of getting my products to the clients in that new market? This is quite key. Even tax issues. Look, last week I was helping one of my clients is a UK company exporting services to Ecuador, and Ecuador, a part of those services were being provided from the UK, and another part are being provided from Chile. It so happened that Ecuador has a 22% withholding tax on payments to the UK, and it has no withholding tax in payments to Chile. So it was quite easy to set up that rather than go from the UK to use the Chilean subsidiary to do the whole service. So that's tax planning, just one aspect of all that you need to do when you're thinking on exporting. Let me take you to one final point here, which is opening your foreign office. many years ago, I was a pioneer, as Jimena mentioned, in the SAP world. I was the first SAP consultant in Latin America. I started an SAP practice in 1993, and I opened, I was working for a international consulting firm, working very closely with SAP, and I opened offices in 8 different countries in Latin America. And, you know, my shareholders in those days they said, you don't need to give us a lot of dividend, but we're not going to give you more money. If you want to go and open offices, you have to make sure you do that with the cash you're generating. And the other thing is that you can open an office in a country once you've got a client. Now, that's a tough one when you're doing services like, for instance, technology implementation, where nobody knows, you don't have a brand, nobody knows your product, and you're being asked to get a client before you even have an office, a passing bird trying to get a consultant. You know how tough that is, but eventually that worked. And the important thing is, start off, don't spend huge amounts of money on offices. Your first office when you're going to start in a country is your hotel. So initially go to a good hotel, an expensive hotel, because that's your first image when nobody knows you. The second thing, once you manage, go to the chambers of commerce that you have access to start building your networks. The third thing, start a virtual office. Go to one of these organizations like Regus or something like that. At least it gives the image that you're not a passing bird anymore. You have somewhere where they can look for you. You've got a telephone number. You've got an office. And then once you start growing, those offices become very expensive, so then you move into your own premises. But try and make that process. Jerry?
Absolutely. And, you know, for example, in fashion, I've seen so many young designers or small, medium-sized companies which are not clear about, you know, the margins they need to have between cost, wholesale to retail. And, you know, sometimes it can be confusing. And if you don't have that sounding board, somebody who's going to come from the outside and give you the right information, you can potentially have the wrong answer. For example, in Europe, in fashion retail, the markup from wholesale to retail is going to be 2.5, 2.8. But if you go to the US, it's a different number. And I have some European brands who are going to tell me, Thierry, the markup is going to be 2.1, 2.2. I said, where did you get that? On a website. The website will give me, you know, online I can get all the information I want in the world. I said, yeah, but. And when I asked him, you know, where did he get that information? Where was the website who gave him that 2.1 was coming from? He told me the US. And it's correct. In the US, they don't have VAT. So if you take a 2.5, 2.8 markup in Europe and you take off that, you divide by 1.2 on average, you come down to 2.1, 2.3, which is the US markup. So you see, you take the information from the wrong source and you ended up applying it to you, and that's where it doesn't make sense. So for me, the importance of planning is because, you know, beyond a great strategy, if you fail to plan, you completely destroy. And, you know, even Coca-Cola, when they went to China, they completely failed to do the translation right. Do you know the story about Alka-Seltzer? They forgot to remember that when you go to the Middle East, they don't read from left to right. They read from right to left. So basically, you had 3 images: somebody having a headache, taking the Alka-Seltzer, feeling good. But for the Middle Eastern people, they saw somebody feeling great, taking Alka-Seltzer, ending up with a headache. Well, that's it. The whole marketing was down because of that. So you really want to be able to pay attention to the question, who's going to be opening those real questions that your business needs to be able to move forward. Now, the third P is about product. And product is of course, because you've got a product or service, and you need to make sure that whatever you're selling in Mexico may not succeed in Venezuela. What you're selling in Brazil as a Brazilian company may not succeed in Trinidad or in France. So, you know, understanding, learning about and anticipating the trend in that country or destination where you are planning to ship your goods is absolutely critical. So getting that right product at the right time in the right quantity is going to be essential. The one thing which really worries me sometimes is people do not necessarily know what they're selling. Of course, they're going to be selling shoes. Of course, they're going to be selling, a dessert. But actually, what we forget sometimes to understand is the product segmentation of what we're selling. And let me tell you a little story. And I get that when I visit stores who have to do $1 million or $2 million a year to break even only. You come to that store, you sit down with the CEO and the retail director, and you tell them, what is your number one product you sell? Dresses, Thierry, great. How much sales does it represent? 40%. So 40% of total sales are dresses, great. So what do you track? The dresses, of course, great. What kind of dresses do you sell? Well, what do you mean? Short dresses? Yes. Long dresses? Yes, correct. So what do you track every month? Dresses, Thierry. Why are you asking twice the same question? And you see they're asking me nearly to leave the office. And then I ask them the killer question. Do you know whether you need to do 30% short dresses, 70% long dresses, or the reverse? And guess what they answer? I don't know. So basically, they have a big chunk of their products, of their sales, which they don't really understand. I had that with some students, and the company was selling cannelé, which is a Bordeaux-based, a French-based dessert. And the guy basically told me, Thierry, no, I'm just selling cannelé. No, you're not. You're selling fashion ones. You're selling trend, because today, for example, the sour caramel is a flavor that really is trendy. So you may have trendy, you may have fashion, you may have basic product, and just that is a segmentation that you need to understand to be able to grow sales, because then you're going to be responsible.
Thierry, just a quick one there. Thierry is talking about products, but when we talk about, in my case, for instance, intangible services as technology implementation, one of the big challenges is how do you develop trust in your potential clients, in your prospects. One thing that I did, for instance, when I was opening this SAP implementation practice in Colombia, I had couple of very successful clients in Argentina. So what I did, I had a client meeting or prospects meeting in Colombia, in Bogota, where I was going to talk all the marvelous things about SAP and all about our marvelous knowledge of how to implement this. But what I did, I took the client from Argentina. Do you know what? That client started speaking, and that was our best salesman in the world. A client that comes and tells a prospect about their experience. So use some creativity in that case. Make a little investment. I have to pay the CIO of this company to fly and spend a couple of days in Bogota, but I can tell you the payback on that was enormous. Jerry?
Yes, absolutely. So
okay, we're going on to the people factor. This is a very important factor. I mentioned to you at the beginning that all my life now is about managing intellectual capital in organizations. Well, this is one leg of intellectual capital. I use 3 legs of intellectual capital. This is the first leg, that the people leg, the staff, and new staff that you take on in the market where you are entering. Obviously, it's always good to take some of your present and experienced staff to help you start that new operation or that new practice. But then you bring on local people, and you train and train and train. Train on buying, train on selling, train on delivery. Everything you do on training, and you can do all this in-house nowadays. You can do a lot of this at people's own time using e-learning or blended learning platforms and lots of things you can do. Now, the next point I have there is, the question of what do you do internally and what you do externally. I just saw Yenny on the screen that said she knows nothing about exports and so is outsourcing that completely. Well, that's a very important decision. And I think Yenny is right to do that, because from what I understand, her business is exports, or the method for exporting is not her core business. So you have to define what is your distinctive competencies. Never outsource distinctive competencies, but yes, outsource things that are not distinctive competencies for yourself. Because in the knowledge economy, no single organization produces value by itself. It does so working with others, and outsourcing is one of the ways that we use for working with others and using other people's skills. So you need to have all your good processes there for hiring, for training, have good job descriptions. Make sure your new staff understands what the vision, mission of your organization is, and how your culture, your values, and all the rest of it. And can we change? And the other, so that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is building your networks in this new market. That's essential. And you have to do partnerships. Look, when I started this SAP implementation outfit, and I started the Chilean practice, I found I had a very good team of consultants that I was prepared to send over to Chile, but I didn't know the market, and I found that I didn't know potential clients. And in Chile, it's very important for people to know you. So what did I do? I set up a strategic alliance with no one else but IBM. IBM knew nothing about SAP implementation in those days, so I was bringing a knowledge base, a technology, a method, and IBM was setting up their market knowledge and their network of potential clients. So we worked together, and it worked. And I call it a necessary evil, because I would much rather not have a partner and do everything myself. But that doesn't work nowadays, and it's very difficult to break into a new market with an intangible service as I was taking and not count on some local help. Now, you have to understand how these partnerships evolve. My problem with that partnership was that working on projects, the knowledge of my people was going to migrate to IBM's people, and therefore in the midterm, I would lose my competitive advantage with IBM. On the other hand, I was working in these clients, so I was making sure that I was developing relationships with these clients. So I was giving away part of my competitive advantage in terms of knowledge, but I was gaining knowledge networks in the market. So that you need to strike a balance and make sure you understand how to be conscious of what's happening and plan and work on it. And that's what it's always nice to have people from the outside who can help you do that. Jerry?
Yeah, and in addition, I would like to say that, despite Paul mentioning IBM, he was a very small player. So, whether you're going to be approaching a larger business or whether you're a small business approaching another small business, please, we're talking sales. The benefit of you working with a partner today, you must embrace it and use it. It's the opportunity to add your database to somebody else's database, which means that you double the opportunity to connect with the right people. You double the opportunity to basically grow your sales. And on top of it, that person will be bringing you sales, but he or she may be also bringing you, I would say, either, a technical or sales expertise. So it's an opportunity to really go further together, and that is very positive.
Very good.
Obviously time is moving on, so we need to move also to promotion, because we're talking sales, so it's about sales and promotion. And I think Paul mentioned about that lady who was having a retail business in the food arena and food sector, and it's true. If you want to increase your price, you need to build a brand. You cannot just be selling a product. And I really want you to think about why you're buying Coca-Cola, NFL, Virgin, iPhone, or BMW. It's not just because it's a car. It's not just because it's a phone. It's because they built a brand. They built a whole, why they do it. And because you want to be having the latest technology, this is why you buy it. So, put yourself, try to answer, why I'm doing things, how I'm doing things. And the last question should be what I'm going to be giving. And therefore have that right message to the right person at the right time with the right tool. And the one thing we do not necessarily sometimes invest easily when we start a business is the CRM, the customer relationship management, because sales could be to some extent sum up to two words: traffic and conversion. Maybe one of the challenges yet, even though it looks simple, it can be hard to implement. Why? Because do I start with building traffic, or do I start in converting? So try to look at your product. Am I selling a low ticket item, and am I selling a high ticket item? Because obviously if you're selling a high ticket item, you might say, well, Thierry, I don't necessarily need a lot of people in my database. I could just have 3 or 5, because if I sell one, I'm going to make a lot of money. So, but if you're having a low ticket item, most probably you're going to try to build traffic, but then be extremely good at conversion so that it really produces the results you're expecting for the business. Now, remember today, whether we're talking retail, whether you're going to be talking the B2B buying exercise, it's about creating a very unique buying or shopping experience. So I really want you to understand, I trusted that retailer I've talked about at the beginning of the webinar to say, look, as soon as you're going to be inside his shop, I know he can convert you. But sometimes he's going to be afraid of going to you if you're outside. Today, the most expensive piece of real estate is the distance and the space between the till and outside your store. It's whether you go out of that store and you say, wow, they really impressed me. And you're going to talk about that experience to people, to friends, 8 people rather than maybe only 4 or nobody, and you're going to be also relaying it on social media. Now, today, you've got a lot of tools, and of course, you want somebody to help you identify which are the best tools to promote your business, because between advertising, PR, email, blogging, videos, social media, all those are extremely relevant. Certainly.
Very good, Thierry. Let me. The story I didn't tell you is that client that I took from Colombia, from Argentina to Colombia, was Mercedes-Benz. Nobody less than Mercedes-Benz. So I didn't have a brand. I was a very small company. Nobody knew what SAP was in 1995 in Colombia. But the client that was speaking to the audience was the CIO of Mercedes-Benz in Argentina. I was piggybacking on the Mercedes-Benz brand. Can you imagine? That was a great thing. Change.
Absolutely. And therefore, the next P?
Processes. Okay. We'll go through this very quickly. But, I mentioned the 3 legs of intellectual capital. So the first leg is human capital, which we talked about. The second leg is structural capital, is how we put our knowledge to work. And that's an asset that you have in your local markets. You've developed processes. So when you go to a new market, you need to get your new people to be productive very quickly by taking your best practices to that new market. Of course, you need to do some adaptation, but, make the most of that knowledge that's embedded in your processes and in your organization to be able to replicate in the new market and train the people you have just brought on in that market to work with these processes. And don't forget, it's 20%, the 20-80 rule, Pareto. It's 20% of our business gives us 80% of our profit. So always keep that in mind as part of your process management. Thierry?
Absolutely. And, we never, I would say sometimes make sure that we implement the processes. I've done a few videos, I've been talking to people, and I would say the 4 reasons why we failed is we don't have the skills, the expertise. We don't have, I would say, the processes to make things happen. Because as you grow, the business will need to get more training, but also will need to solidify more processes. The third reason sometimes why we fail is because we don't deliver consistently. So having the skills and experience, having the processes, having the skills, and the last thing is having a sounding board or mentor, somebody who's going to open all those doors in the business. Now,
very good.
The last P is about patience. And I love also this little quote: if you have no critics, you'll likely have no success. Patience is understanding that we have to obviously build the foundation of the business, and we also have to work with people, whether they're going to be inside the business, and that's why vision and values are critical to get the staff to really embrace where you want to bring them, and that's why they're going to give 100%, I would say, to your business and work longer hours if necessary. And patience is also, I would say, the opportunity to understand that, when you look at the Pareto rule, the 80-20, and when you look at all the research that is being done, what did you see? People don't buy on your first phone call. They don't buy on your first email. They don't buy on the first conversation. So it's going to be over time that you're going to build that prospect into a client and a repeat client. So that's why, you've got to have inside yourself, whether you have it internally or whether somebody is helping you to build it up. The same way I was, pushing that client this morning to say, look, Bobby, you've got to move forward and get outside the store and grab people. So get that perseverance, stamina, resilience to make it happen. However, there is one thing I really want to say in relation to patience, because too often on social media, you have some people will say, go for your dream. Don't let anybody break your dream. That is correct. But the dream has to make sure it stands over time and that you're not hitting the wall all the time. So please, having a dream is great. Pursuing that dream is great. But remember the P of planning, meaning you need measurable goals of what you need to achieve every month. If you're not meeting those measurable goals every month, it means something's wrong, something's broken, it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed now, because when it's too late, you may not have the cash to be able to revisit the business. Paul?
Thierry, I mentioned I said there were 3 legs of intellectual capital management. I mentioned 2, the human capital, the structural capital, and the third is probably one that takes a long time to develop, which is relational capital. How do you develop relationships in that new market? So, and that requires patience and a lot of stamina, perseverance, and resilience. Okay, let's. We need to move rather quickly now.
So it's really about. I'm afraid that on the webinar Cisco system, the picture has not come up properly, but you understand now the international sales booster program that we work with. But beyond those 7 P's, I'm sure you understand that today the only constant is change, and the rate of change is accelerating. Today, the world is much more complex. Whether it's the 7 P's, you understand that you need passion and positivism. You need to work on performance. You cannot procrastinate anymore. And that's why the world is exciting, because it forces us, to look at new ways to work, new ways to think. And therefore, Paul is going to show you now a critical aspect of the work that we do with clients that you need to do on yourself to ensure that, it works in the best possible way.
So if you look at, this is part of our toolkit, a very small part, but just to give you an idea, you have on the right, on the verticals, you have the the 7 P's of the International Sales Booster Program. And across the top, on the horizontal, you have the skills required and attributes required from a business leader to make this work. And so you've got each cell, and we ask each our potential clients to rate themselves in each of these cells. And I love the quote by George Bernard Shaw that you see underneath. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. So sometimes we don't plan properly because we don't have the self-confidence attribute, but many times we don't have the self-confidence attribute because we haven't done the planning. So this works in both ways, and it takes some reflection and introspection and discussing with other people so that you rate yourself, so you have a realistic starting point from where you want to go, from where you are now to where your objectives are. Jerry?
Yes, absolutely. So what we want to say is that, mentoring service also needs to be different from, let's say, coaching, for example, because coaching is about focusing on some shortcomings, some aspect that needs to be improved and bettered. The mentor is here really to act as a sounding board, also on occasion have the position of the mentor, but make sure that he works with you on all the questions, open new doors, act as a sounding board. But because we act also as a mentor in confidence, it's making sure that it's invisible to the organization. So the other people in the business does not know that you are a mentor. But on the other hand, because we bring that value added, it really helps you have that business and personal growth. And the free subject matter expert that we bring alongside the work that the mentor and the mentee do is great, because it means that immediately within an hour or two, you will get expert advice on opportunities or challenges that you face every day in the business. So one thing we wanted to share with you is that if you're looking to receive that free ebook about how to enhance the effectiveness of top management, feel free to go to that landing page and let us know. But you can of course call us, or you can email us. The results will be the same. We're here to really be able to answer also your questions and really make, I would say, your sales grow, whether it's going to be in your home country or internationally, with the benefit of international sales, as we mentioned at the beginning. So we're happy to take your questions. Please throw all your questions in the chat box, and of course, if you want to, in addition to the ebook, you want to go through a personal one-to-one, so that you've got that mentor working with you for 30 minutes. We're not American lawyers. I told you we are closer to a boutique. We have that boutique approach, so we care about you. We want to really understand that 30 minutes can be a longer one, because obviously we're here to find a solution to the question you're going to be sending us. So go to that landing page, which is the bit.ly/CEO-LP advice, and we'll be happy to connect with you straight away. So feel free to send again your questions through the chat box, so we can also answer your questions. Paul, would you like to add something?
Jimena, I know we're coming to the end, but if you have questions, we would be delighted to take some.
Yes, thank you so much, Thierry and Paul, for your presentation, your examples, your big experience that you shared today with us, and thank you to the audience for joining us today. I have a couple of questions, but first of all, remember that we are recording this webinar, so you will be able to see it again in Connect Americas next week. And also feel free to ask for more advices and for more information in the emails you have there in the slide. So one of the questions is from Magdalena. She asked, how do I know which tools are best to promote my business? Talking about one of the P's, promotion. What can you tell Magdalena about this?
Alors, I will let Paul give his own answer, but I would say, of course, the more we have a context and the more we have measurements of where you are and where you would like to be in a measurable way, the easier it will be, obviously, putting the right tool in place. Because I totally agree. Ultimately, we have a limited time, so it's about managing priorities extremely carefully, and it's not easy when we don't have enough hours in the day to do everything we need to do, and social media most probably making us waste a lot of time. So, and you know, in my industry, sometimes in retail and fashion, Jimena, we've got so many time wasters that you've got to be extremely rigorous, diligent, and extremely hard, but making sure that you have a process to even manage the partners and manage the people who connect with you. So what I would like is to, as a conclusion, say, look, the tool you're going to use is going to be based on the goals you have set up for your business. And then if you realize that something is wrong, then we analyze whether the goals were wrong or whether the tool was wrong. Paul?
Yeah, and it depends also on what your industry is. Of course, if you're in professional services, as I tend to focus more on, we use a different set of tools than if you're in fashion or products or other. So, but I encourage you, Magdalena, to click onto that and use that possibility of free advice that we have offered. Click on there later, whenever it suits you, and we'll have a one-to-one chat with somebody who's an expert on your industry and the issues that you're having.
And as I mentioned to all of you, it's the 30 minutes have to be proactive answering your questions. So we are more than happy to spend a few more minutes to understand your context and your challenges, so that those 30 minutes really make sense to you, and you come out of it with clear answers.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, we have another question here. Where can you find reliable information? Do you have any special advice on that when you are reaching the right prospect, or to find a database? Where can you find reliable information?
You know, Jimena, this is exactly the story I was talking about, you know, when I talked about the margin between wholesale and retail, where the person went on a website because but the website was in America, and therefore the information got was great to have a markup for American goods, but not for European goods, because you have VAT here. And, you know, unfortunately, I have a third of the young designers, the margins do not work, meaning they will not be successful. So for me, once again, Paul said it, we need the context. So the more they can have a one-to-one, the easier it will be to answer. Obviously, you know, one way to potentially get answers today is still to also interview other people. And if you make sure that you ask a very clear question with a context, you know, CEO, so people who want to help you, a lot of people want to help you. The question is, very often they won't help you only because you didn't give them any information. You know, I have people coming to me and telling me, Thierry, should I go to who's next trade show in Paris? And I tell them, are you going to be asking me another question? No, I don't need. I just need to know whether that trade show is good for me. I said, in that case, I don't want to answer. Why? Because you're not telling me how you're going to prepare the show, how you're going to behave on site. I don't know how you're going to follow up the customers. You will most probably be losing every potential business because you don't know about your positioning at the show. You don't know. The show can be great in general. It may not be great for you because either you are not suitable for that show, but even if you are, success is not just you being present at the show. It's the preparation 4 to 6 months before. It's your behavior on site and your post and the follow-up.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it also depends, again, and I'm sorry to say it, but if you're in a regulated industry, you'll have a lot of data. If you're not in a regulated industry, then you'll have to rely on speaking to people. Now, if you ask them, you know, don't go with a hard sales approach to people. Ask them for help. Ask them, look, I'm entering this market. I know you have a lot of experience. You know this market. I'd like to have your opinion on how I should approach this. If you go with that sort of attitude, people are naturally prone to helping. You're also working their ego. If you go and just the fact that you and ask somebody for something means you respect them, you respect their opinion. So you need to work on that as well. But also, you know, use experienced. That's part of what our people do. They're very experienced. They know these markets, and they can probably guide you on how to approach these different.
To also answer, please, you have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is full of professionals, so potentially those people will be happy to help. But please, only 5% max approach you and connect with you and give you a reason. That is not the best opportunity for you to project a positive image. Please, when you connect, give 2 or 3 lines of explanation. LinkedIn allows it. Use them. Show professionalism. Today, because we use email, I receive 80% of my emails. There's not a single phone number. So I'm a buyer. You connect with me, sending me your lookbook. Can I call you to say, Paul, it's a great lookbook. Can we talk? No, I've got to send you an email. Say, please send me your phone number. What is that? We are killing ourselves. We are killing, you know, the jewels we have in our back garden.
Yeah, sure.
Value the time of the person you're going to approach. Make it super easy in terms of buying experience. Give them a wow factor, and that, you know, can increase your odds by 50 times.
Jerry, I'm afraid Jimena's going to throw us out of here.
Of course, no, I can understand. But if she wants to throw another question, I told you we're here for them, and otherwise we'll do the one-to-one.
I have one more question because we are running out of time. So someone asked in the box, what can we learn from failure? I remember you talking about that. What can you say about fail in different, I don't know, achievements? So what can you advise our SMEs here today to do when they fail, and what is next?
I mean, first of all, I would love us to have the American approach to failure. Failure is not a failure. Failure is a getting closer to a win. And you know, the one way you're going to get a smile from somebody is to say, Paul, please, you know what? Give me a no. Don't buy my product, because statistically, I've got, you know, basically 1 chance out of 4 to get a sale. I had 3 no's. So basically, if I had 2 no's, if you give me a no, it's going to be the 3rd one, which means the 4th one's going to be a yes. And you make the person smile, and then actually you can generate it as a business. So let's take the failure as a getting closer to being better. However, a failure still needs to be understood, and we need to learn from those failures, of course. And what I would like to say is, with a lot of SMEs coming up, the reasons why I think we fail is we don't have measurable goals. And, you know, when I tell clients, or I even tell my students, give me a measurable goal, you know what they come up with? A measurable criteria. I don't want a measurable criteria. I want a measurable goal. I want you to tell me I'm going to get 5 phone calls today. You know, I'm going to be investing $100,000. I'm going to be speaking to 3 consultants. You know, if you make it measurable, very naturally, your team and yourself will say, I had to do 10, I didn't do 10, why? And you're going to just throw the question why several times, and you're going to get to the root of the problem. And, you know, sometimes applying the why, when, where, how, who are going to be answering most of the questions you may have to prevent the mistake from happening.
Thierry, I have an Argentine colleague, a woman, who has enormous problems in life for different reasons. But, you know, she says to me, Paul, I've already got a no. Now I'm going for yes. You know, that's the attitude. Don't accept a no. A no is always there. Go for a yes. You know.
Correct. But you know, there's also, since we're talking sales, Jimena, it's also making sure that, you know, when you go to people, you don't allow them to say no. You tell them, I offer you the solution A or B. So, you know, it's like, Paul, do we meet tomorrow morning or Wednesday afternoon? Because if you allow him to say, if you ask him, you know, do we meet, yes or no, he's going to tell you no. You know, it's like people going to, you go in a restaurant or in the store, it's like, can I help you? No, because if you ask the question, how can I help you? You will get a no at 80%, if not 99. You know, and that's.
I can't remember who asked that question, but all I can tell you is I feel embarrassed going to meetings with Thierry. He really pushes people hard. It almost makes me embarrassed. He doesn't take a no.
Oh,
no.
well.
Life is exciting. There's a lot, because, Jimena, the one thing we need to tell people is today a lot of people are afraid to change. So honestly, out of all the people attending the webinar today, please understand that potentially 80% will be afraid of change. Please embrace change. Change is positive. And if you do that, you are ahead of the game. You're part of the 10, 20, 30% of people who are not afraid of change, and you make it part of your daily grind. And that will be success down the road, guaranteed.
Thank you. I agree with both of you. And we have to finish our webinar right now. I really want to thank you again, Thierry and Paul, SEO Mentoring in Confidence. Thank you for joining us today again, and I really like sharing this moment with you, this webinar. I don't want, if you want to say goodbye to our audience, and please remember that this is being recorded, so we will have the webinar at connectamericas.com. Thank you everyone again for joining us today, and I hope to see you soon in our next webinar, so be online following us on our social networks.
Thanks very much to the audience, and thanks very much to Connect Americas. You're doing a great job.